And welcome in everybody to Scout's Eye on Football. I am Chris Landry. Great to be with you as always, and looking forward to having you with us. Hold on just a second here. Always. And want to remind you that we always encourage you to, if you're catching us live on Twitch, we welcome you. A little bit more about what we've got there for you. But also a reminder that if you're listening to this in podcast form, which we greatly appreciate, you can catch this podcast on Landry Football's conference call. You can sign up for it. You can find us on LandryFootball.com. You can find the podcast there. But we encourage you to get involved with the show and join us live on Twitch TV. Also on YouTube. Landry Football YouTube, and then obviously the Chris Landry Twitch channel, which is really great because then you can watch us live and certainly participate in the show, send any questions that you might have. And we want to thank everybody that's found us on Twitch. And again, twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football is what you want to do. Ask you to hit the follow button, hit the heart button. That's how you follow us. It's a little heart button at the right of the screen. This will automatically send you a message every time we're live and give you a link to the show. So, secondly, you can chat with us on Twitch. Say hi, say anything. We'll give you a shout back on it. And as a subscriber of Scout's Eye, as well as the Chris Landry Football Twitch channel, you're going to receive commercial-free experience on Twitch, which is really great, which means you don't miss a minute. As subscribers to the Chris Landry or Chris Landry Football Insiders, once you subscribe, and we'll lean on you to cheer, have fun, and, of course, participate in the chat room. And that's a great way to support us is to, for new subscribers to the show, we have what you call bits. And if you like what we do, cheer us a few bits. They're really cheap, and it's easy. The more you cheer, the higher you get on the leaderboard. You'll be able to see where you rank on the leaderboard on the show page right on Twitch. So here's how it works. You buy bits right here on the Twitch channel. And now in the chat room, you type cheer in all caps, followed directly by the number of bits you wish to give. So 200 bits is $2. Once you do it, you'll see it pop up, and I'm sure it'll give you a shout out and say thank you. So we want you to be involved, and we appreciate you doing so. We've got a great couple of great folks that are involved with the show. American betting experts are folks that you want to take advantage of, and we're going to tell you about that in a little bit. And the great folks at Manscaped as well that are bringing you Scout's Eye on Football. Want to get into a couple of things. I don't want to get into it too much because I did it yesterday on the SEC show. But I want to kind of recap and try to do it in a quick fashion, which is not easy for me, on officiating and how it can be improved overall. Then I want to get into coaching because there's a lot of issues that pertain to officiating last week. But even in some of those same games, there are coaching issues and coaching errors that are fundamental, pardon me. And I'm going to get into, because people will say, how do you get to be a head coach and you can't figure that out, or you can't do that out, and you can't handle this and you can't handle that. Well, I'm going to get into kind of why and how coaching, and every coach has flawed, every coach has strengths, and how do you deal with it? It's one of the things I do in coaching evaluation, coaching staff evaluation, and helping guys get through some issues, because none of us are perfect. And anybody that runs a business out there, you know that you can't do everything. You're not great at everything. I certainly am not. And how to put things together in place is the real key. So I want to get into that. Got some questions that I'm going to answer. Richard sends them in. We're going to get to those. We're going to get to your questions here in the chat room if you got them, any comments. Want to get into a little bit of a look of this past week in college football overall. go into a little bit more in depth around the country, and then get into this week's matchups. Then in the NFL, same thing. Take a look. But I do want to start kind of where I finished off yesterday on the SEC show with Neil McCready, which you can catch every Tuesday and Friday at 9 a.m. Central. Now, we did it on Thursday last week. We're doing it on Thursday again at 12 noon Central this week. But actually, you're not going to be able to catch that live. That is when the Chuck Oliver Show airs on the Chris Landry Twitch channel. But you're going to be able to listen to that. Due to a scheduling problem, we're going to be doing that. But normally, we have the SEC football and beyond Tuesday and Friday at 9 a.m. Central. Same time as we're doing this show on Wednesday, as well as on Thursdays. We've got the Landry Football Podcast that we bring to you. I'm going to go into it a little bit more tomorrow in the Landry Football Podcast, but just to clarify on officiating, on things that I believe should be addressed long-term. Now, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. And Jigs Dad, appreciate you, man, cheering 100 bits. He is unquestionably the leader and the biggest supporter we have, and we really appreciate him. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in the officiating thing tomorrow on the Landry Football Podcast. However, and just a couple of people mentioned something on Twitter about, well, what you're saying, Chris, is already in place. No, it's not. Obviously, I haven't done a good job of explaining it, and I'll do it more tomorrow in the Landry Football Podcast. But in general, what I think is going to happen and needs to happen long range is to embrace the technology and move the officiating of the game more into the booth. Meaning, people say, where it is, Chris, they're in the booth and they can do it. No, it's not. It's how it is managed and how it's incorporated is not what I think is best. I think the eventual constant communication to where you have it to where in the booth they can see things and call it, relay it down in real time, makes it much quicker and much more accurate, much more decisive. And it takes time, folks. You can't flip a switch on it. I used the analogy yesterday because people say, oh, I don't know why they have damn replay. They can't get it right. We waste all this damn time and we can't get the call right. Why not have it at all? That's defeatist. That is like saying, I don't like this cell phone stuff. I actually don't, by the way, but we can't live without it now, right? I don't like this cell phone stuff. It's as big as a briefcase. What have you done? I mean, remember in the day when look, I can tell you, when I was waiting for a coaching job one time, there was a point in time where you was afraid to leave the house because there was no answering machine. There was no cell phones. You had to be there. And there wasn't any even, what do you call those wireless, phones to where you had to be there by the cord. So you had to be within like 3 rings so you can answer the damn thing. Not so anymore, of course. Where would we be if we didn't embrace the technology and not just say, oh, this sucks? Well, of course it sucks. Everything sucks when you start it out. You gotta improve upon it. Yes, replay sucks the way they're doing it. Yes, they're not doing it right. Yes, it's a work in progress. I had so many discussions in owners' meetings, in competition committee meetings. George Young, Bill Poling about, well, we're not trying to get every call right. We're just trying to get the most obvious ones. I'm like, and when we started it, there was something to that because the technology was good, but it couldn't catch everything. As the technology grows, everybody sees the call. Everybody knows it's right or wrong. But you can't do anything about it because we're not allowed to make that. Baloney. Okay. That's defeatist attitude. Let's go ahead and let's gradually Okay, move the game more into the booth to where they have more control. And you say, well, wait, we're already doing that. No, you don't, because right now what happens is the official stops the game on the field, goes and looks at a little box. That's not how it's done. That's not how it should be done. That's how it's done. It's not how it should be done. Let's have it to where there it's controlled in the booth, and it's controlled at the housing center, wherever the housing center is. In the NFL, it's New York. It could be, and have that collaborative communication to get it right in real time so that you're not wasting 5 minutes of stop. You're not having 5 minutes of stoppage time. You go ahead and you move right on. I think that's the way to go. And I think that you can't have it to where, that should have been reviewed. Everything should be reviewed. And there should be some guidelines. If you review it and it's not clear, move on. If it's not clear and you don't have it, then there's nothing to continue to extrapolate on. Make sure if it is something that you believe you think you got it, but you need to blow it up or something, then I think you can delay it 2 or 3 minutes in a critical moment. Yeah. But the whole process of, it should be reviewed. Oh, and this is my pet peeve. It's got to be clear and irrefutable. My God, we're not sending somebody to prison for murder. We don't need to have 12 jurors all agree, or whatever the law, 6 or, You don't have to have that. You just need to know, yes, he got in. No, he didn't. Yes, it was a fumble. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was a catch. No, it wasn't. Yes, it touched his hand. No, it didn't. It doesn't have to be, boy, I am 60% sure it touched his hands, but it's not 75. I'm not going to overturn it. It touched his hands. It was a fumble. It was not a fumble. It was a catch. Correct it. And what we have to do is we have to eliminate the stigma of, you're taking the game. They can't do it on the field. No bleep. You can't make these calls on the field. The players are too big. They're too strong. They're too fast. And people who are critical of officials, it tells me how many people have actually been on a football field. There's no way in hell you can adequately officiate a football game on the field only. You can't. It's a blur. And you can't. And you're looking, you could put more guys on the field. It's more problematic to play the game. You've got the technology. You can use more camera angles, and you could have more people up there involved. It just makes sense. But it takes a while. It takes a while to figure out, even to improve the technology. But it's something that's important, and I do believe it. And it's not what we're doing now. What we're doing now, what we have in play now, the lack of authority now is not what I'm looking at. And I'm not looking for the official on the field to go on the sideline to look at a 5-inch screen. I want somebody in a 32 high definition screen or whatever, bigger, looking at it in the booth. Multiple people, and then multiple people, but I want them to be able to see it. And I want to be able to communicate, okay, look, this is what we saw. What did you guys see on the field? If it's something on the field, because there are things that you can see on the field of play that you can't quite see. You might be able to see the ball touch. You might be able to see some things that you were in a position to see live that you can overrule. No, guys, look, I absolutely saw it. And, you've got to be able to have clear, view of it on camera to dispute it, because you got to take the word of the guy that may have seen it firsthand on certain things. Other things, can't do it. And that is a gradual training. It is an ego thing. It is, well, we're not doing a good enough job. We got to not have replay. No. We need to get out of that attitude. It needs to be a collaborative effort. The games are important. Jobs are on the line. We need to do a better job training. Yes, I believe we need to work and make officiating more of a full-time job, full-time pay, full-time benefits, pension, insurance, what have you. And I think you grandfather it in. I think guys that are really good, that have value, that also do other work, their grade out is one of the best. Let them continue. But I do think we need to look at it as a full-time gig. And there's constant training in the off season. There's constant work and improvement. But anyway, I'll go into that a little bit more into why, but wanted to address it because I know there were some thoughts after, well, we already have that, Chris. No, we don't. We don't have that. That's not what we have, and that's not what I'm suggesting. Want to get into, though, some things that are more, things that I've been involved in, and like so my officiating career ended in high school, and it's a tough job. Okay? I'm just going to tell you, it's tough. Coaching. One thing that my background, coaching, and people who are new to this, I have coached at the high school level, the college level, the NFL level. I've been a college football recruiting coordinator, been a college football administrator. I've been an NFL scout, an NFL scouting director, an NFL personnel administrator, making managerial decisions on coaching and scouting matters. And what I do now with Landry Football, and there's LandryFootball.com, but there's Landry Football Operations, which is I'm looking at the sign here. That's why I'm looking up. That involves the consulting end of that. And one of the things that I do, yes, I do evaluating of draft prospects and NFL players and college players and advanced scoutings, but I also do a lot of work on coaching staff evaluation and coaching search work. And one of the things that I think are completely lost is in the process of when you hear people complain about coaches, this and that, there are different types of coaches. Nobody's born a baby coach. You come at it from a different end. There's some guys that are not great X's and O guys, but are good leaders and are good head coaches. There's some guys that are great X's and O guys that are good head coaches. They're good leaders. There are different ways to do it. And then there are guys that are really good X's and O coaches that are not good head coaches. And there are guys that are, really good X's and O coaches that are good. I mean, you've got all types. So when people talk about coaches and what they can or can't do, they often miss the boat about what a guy is or isn't. So one of the things that I wanted to get into is a little bit of an understanding of what really involves in coaching when you come up. Okay, so in college, you certainly have the element of recruiting. And so some guys are really good recruiters and are really good salesmen. They may not even be good evaluators, but you can, as a staff, identify who you want to recruit, and guys that are just ace hard workers, ace communicators, and they can recruit. They may be a liability as a coach on the field. They may not. You have some guys that are maybe not as good salesmen, but really good evaluators. I'll just jump right in and tell you, I don't think I was a really good recruiter. I worked hard, but I'm a little bit more, my strength was evaluating players. When I was a recruiting coordinator in college, there was no 5-star, 4 stars. None of that existed. There weren't really lists and things. evaluated players and finding players that you weren't going off of any list. You were looking. And, I mean, I offered kids. There's some kids that I offered that just played basketball, and I offered them off of a basketball because I could see the traits. That was my strength. I wasn't the best at selling them to come on. I thought I was. I wasn't real patient. I thought I communicated well, but part of it for me was I was just better in the film room and not as good on the telephone. It's just the reality of it. That's my self-evaluation. There are other guys that just are the opposite. And so no one's perfect. The key on putting together a staff, assistants, and the key with the head coaches, you've got to make sure all bases are covered. And you've got to make sure that in recruiting, you've got all bases covered. And you've got staff now, analysts that can help with things. Back when I was doing it, I mean, it was me. And I remember at LSU, it was me and Sam Nader and I. I'm going to use better English. Sam was really good he knew everybody on campus. He was the guy that was able to set the visits well. I mean, he communicated well with the people on campus. And so a kid came on a visit, Sam, it was very organized. He knew what players on the team to work as chaperones. I mean, he got, he had all the right connections to be able to get all of that done. And, my strength was in the film room on who we needed to recruit and getting coaches on the right guys, other coaches on the right guys, and where I think we needed to move off. Well, this guy was, all state, and he just wasn't good enough. And those are the type of things that you need to look at. Now, I see you there, Bernsey and Jay Diggs. I'm going to answer your question here. Hang on. Questions. But same things on the field. Your ability to teach. Okay, your ability to teach in the classroom, your ability to teach on the practice field, and the ability to be able to communicate, see things in the field. Some guys are really good teachers. I don't want to mention any names because some of them are friends, but there was a guy there were two guys. I'll give you two guys that I think were amongst. One guy is one of the best defensive line coaches at any level of football for 20 years. And anybody in football, coaching, scouting, college, NFL will tell you that. And he worked in college and the NFL with tremendous success. He was not a good defensive coordinator. He was maybe the best teacher of defensive line play. Now, he specifically was a great teacher of defensive line technique in a two-gap scheme. He was not as good, so I'm going to take this down to specifics, minute details. Not as good at teaching a one-gap scheme or a four-man front. It's a 3-4 guy. That's what he did. He was great at it. Boom. A guy like Belichick taught 3-4, 4-3. He's done a lot of things. And obviously, I'm not talking about Belichick, nor was it anybody on Belichick's staff. There was a receiver coach that was one of the best ever teaching route running. Not a good recruiter, not a good coordinator. The defensive line coach couldn't put fronts and coverages together very well. The receiver coach was really good understanding in the passing game, but was not very good at understanding the run game and understanding play calling concepts. So there are different skill sets for all the different jobs. Just because you have one doesn't mean you're as good at the other. You have to be really good in a lot of things. Me, I go a little bit further because I don't want to exclude me from this. Because anybody that thinks, well, Chris, you were good at everything. I did just about everything. I wasn't good at everything. I was not good in the NFL at negotiating contracts. Didn't like dealing with agents. Got very frustrated with them. done many a contracts. Doing a contract, managing where to put your financial value in the salary cap era, and I coached and scouted in the pre-salary cap era and the salary cap era. I could put together where the money should be allocated very well. But the patience to negotiate contracts wasn't my strength. Evaluating players, running drafts, that was a strength. Maximizing, getting as many good players that and understanding how they fit to your team, that was my strength. It's you've got to understand that. It's no different than saying, Peyton Manning, nobody says Peyton Manning was a great quarterback, but boy, he sure wasn't real athletic. He sure couldn't run the option. He was a great quarterback. Leave it at that. That's what he was. But understand what made him really good and how you play to that. If you tried to do what you do with quarterbacks today and the movement rolling out, that would be the dumbest thing to do with a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady for that matter. No one would even think of that. Well, that's exactly what people do when certain people get head coaching jobs or certain people get general manager jobs. It's just that on the outside, you don't really know the skill sets of the people because you don't see them and you don't have a keen understanding of that. You at least understand and you at least can see these players on the field and know, hey, this guy is good at this. He's not good at that. I mean, you can see the skill set, how it would differ from certain quarterbacks to another. You can see that athletically. It doesn't take a experienced football guy to see athletic ability, natural athletic ability. So the real key, and I think the most, least talked about, let's go that way, importance of being successful as a coach is the ability to put together a good staff. How do you put together a good staff? Well, you can look at, I heard that guy. I heard of that guy. That's a good staff. Putting together a good staff is like putting together a good football team. A lot of you out there play fantasy football. Well, you're looking for as many players. Let's just stick with regular football. That's a better feel for me. If you've got, bunch of good running backs, but no good offensive linemen. Okay, you don't. You may have some names. Man, you got a lot of good backs, but their line, really good line, no good backs. Good protection. Quarterback's not very good. Quarterback's pretty good. He has no protection. You see where I'm going? You've got to have the ability to make it all come together and flow. It's the same thing on coaching staffs. Same things on front office staffs. If you got all people that can do certain things well and they don't do other things as well, you got a void, and that void will be exposed. So when it comes to coaching, coaches rise up through the ranks and become coordinators and then head coaches. One of the reasons why you like coordinators is because they're good enough to coach one side of the ball and maybe be a play caller and be an effective one. And if you do that, then you at least bring something to the table. The key is everything has to be covered. The X's and O's, the ability to utilize players, to develop players. In college, it's recruiting. You've got to have all of that in play. You don't have to have it all. In fact, very few coaches have it all. I would say, and this is, the best that I've been around that have it all, Belichick and Saban today, Tom Landry, because Tom Landry called every offensive play, every defensive play, every special teams play, and he made every draft pick for the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, that's a fact. It's not – sometimes people take credit for drafting the players. Tom made all those picks. There are others, but there's some great coaches that weren't really good at X's and O's. Jimmy Johnson was not a great X's and O guy. He's a great head coach. He's a great leader. He hired well, and he delegated well, and he had a great command of the mental and the psychological part of his team. He got them to do more. He got them to be held accountable. He got them to have a killer edge. He did all those things very well. Okay, but if he's not a great X's and O guy, somebody has to be. Somebody's got to run the defense. Well, he was very good at it. If you're not great on one side of the ball, then you have a little bit of trouble coaching the coaches. Those are some of the things that you've got to look for, in that if you yourself are not a great X's and O guy, it's hard to be able to help the coordinator out if you yourself hasn't been a good coordinator yourself. So I think those things are really important, but it can be done. But you've got to put together the right structure of a staff. You got to coach the coaches. It's definitely what a Tom Landry did. It's what a Bill Belichick, a Nick Saban did. Look, Mike Ditka. Mike Ditka was awful as an X's and O guy. Now, in that situation, they put the staff together for him. In the NFL, you can take a Cliff Kingsbury, who's not a good head coach, but he's a play caller and a quarterback guy, and you build a staff around him for him. That's how we're going to do it. And you can do that and have success. In college, you can't do that because there's nobody that is running the football side of it. So it's up to the head coach to be the GM, and that doesn't always not as good from person to person. So I think that's really important to understand that. All right, and I'm going to get to some of the questions, and I'm going to get to some of the things that I think we'll get to, some things that I got in mind. Burns asks, James Franklin has done a great job recruiting, but seems to fall short in key game situation. Is that what you see in Franklin? How can Penn State really start to challenge Ohio State? James is a salesman. James is a culture builder, and he's very good at that. He would fit into the category of someone that is really reliant on his coordinators. He is not a good in-game guy. See, like Jimmy Johnson was really good at in-game situations and time. James is not. Awful job against Indiana. That was the whole process of how they played and how unprepared they were against Indiana was evident. The whole, we told him to not score. That's BS. Because if you had focused on it, all you had to do is have the quarterback do it. Trust me. If you communicated, it would have been done correctly. It wasn't communicated. That's BS. That is not only being unprepared, but that is lying and trying to cover up for your inability to do your job correctly, and that's where he's not good at. Now, he's good at other things. Get somebody that can help you up in the booth, that can help you remind you of game situations. So let's say in some cases, you've got a really good play caller. Steve Spurrier was a good play caller as a head coach. He wasn't great with time management and things like that, but he had people that could help him with that because he was concentrating on when the offense gets back, what am I going to do? He delegated that well. James is not an offensive guy. He was a coordinator. He's not very good as a coordinator, and he's not very good time management. He's more of a culture builder, as I said, and as a recruiter. But his inability to have that covered in game management situation, this is one of many that he's had. It's a problem. And it's why that they're going to have to play a flawless game to beat a really good team like an Ohio State. That's better, that's more talented, that's better coached. They're going to have to catch Ohio State on a bad day. Could happen. But they're going in shorthanded on the sidelines, as well as on the playing field in most cases. I'm not trying to be rude. That's what James is as a player. It's Peyton Manning who can't run. James Franklin is not a great coach. I don't mean to compare him to Peyton Manning in terms of coaching skills. He's not. He's pretty average, but he's also a salesman. It's also why he floats his name out for the A&M job when he was never a candidate. It's also why he floats his name out for the USC job. It's also why he's floating his name out there right now for if Auburn has an opening, he'd go back to the SEC. It's all James Franklin's camp doing that. Why? Because he knows, right, at the Penn State, there's a lot of frustration there. They're kind of happy with James, but they're not quite sure. He's trying to build security by saying, you see, everybody else loves me. And when the reality is he wasn't a candidate at A&M, and it's too early to talk about Auburn, but that's the reality. Everybody, some guys are good offensive guys, some guys are good defensive guys, some guys are not good X's and O guys. Everybody has a strength. The key is to understand what your strength is, where your weaknesses are, and to get people to be able to handle it and help you. And he doesn't do that very well. Jig says, I hate to ask, what is your full Dino take? I want to like him. Seems to have the kids' attention. Runs a program you can be proud of. Off the field, X's and O's. Seems fair. Recruiting fair. Another job has to be one of the 5 votes card of the country. I want him to be the one. Look, I think the Dino, first of all, Dino Babers at Syracuse comes from the Art Briles, the offensive system, ran it at Bowling Green and got the job there. It is tough to recruit, but the recruiting has to be better. There's no mistaking of it. Look, I don't see great player development there. It's average. I don't see great recruiting there. It's average. You got kind of an average program, and maybe average is, the results on the field are less than average. It's tough. I think they're one of the reasons why I would say they've been average. The program itself has been less than average. But I think Dino's been average in recruiting and development and coaching. I think it's been average to maybe slightly below, but I think overall results have been quite a bit less than that. And I think that comes to some of the commitment. Financial commitment has to be stronger. They have to want to be great. They have to make a commitment to be great. And I think they have to create more stability within the program because Syracuse has the potential to be better. I do think they've lost their identity a little bit in the ACC. I mean, they're not an ACC school. We all know that. I mean, I thought Syracuse in the East, the Big East was easier to, the whole East Coast area was an easier competition for them, but I also think the identity. I think Syracuse was more identified with a Penn State. Now they're kind of identified, the ACC, and they're not a real fit there. And I think it's hurt recruiting, but you've got to make it work for you. You got to get a dynamic recruiter in there who's got to put a good young staff of teachers. And you got to work it. And is Dino the guy? I don't know. I think you got to start with making the commitment and see what he can do, because you can't evaluate the coach fully until you make the full commitment behind him. You want to make sure that when you pull the plug on a coach that you've given him every opportunity and given him every resource to be at a certain level, whatever that level is, championship level or just, middle of the conference or, stay out of the basement, whatever you won't say that publicly, but whatever you feel that you think's realistic, you got to give them an opportunity. Hadn't done that. Burns says, I like Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech. Besides the process of switching from the option offense with Paul Johnson, what are the other challenges at Tech? Is the main challenge? Well, you hit on the two. The challenges are recruiting. He's a good recruiter. The state of Georgia has become one of the elite states in recruiting, behind Texas, California, Florida. Georgia is the population base in Atlanta alone. It's phenomenal. And the quality is good. In fact, the quality of coaching and what they pay coaches in Georgia are more like Texas than Florida. There's more money in the state. And there's a lot of really good students that are also good football players. And not all of them go and play in the SEC, go play Georgia or Alabama. I think they've got to improve it in recruiting. The recruiting was desolate for a long time because they did not run a style that was conducive to good recruiting. And so he inherited a roster that was ill-fitted, ill-prepared to play the style of football that's going to be successful in today's game. And the ability to be able to open up your recruiting is going to parallel the ability to try to get, a little bit more organization, a little bit more discipline. I think they've done that. I think they've done some things defensively. There's some good talent there, but they have so many guys that were recruited as, quarterback, offensive guys that now got to move to defense. So it's going to take a longer period because it's not just, the talent's bare. No, the talent was full with guys that were ill fit for modern football. So it's going to take time. He's a good recruiter and he's a good coach. And I think he'll do a very good job. Hey, Kev, thanks a bunch. Kev cheered us 100 bits. Really, really appreciate that. Great upset alert with Arizona over Seattle. How brilliant was Vance Joseph's blitz package in the fourth quarter? I thought it was really effective, caused a lot of problems. The biggest thing was how they're able to hide their coverages behind the blitz pressure was really good, made some big-time plays. Ganica says, damn, the chat's popping. Absolutely. Hello, man. Good. Let's see. After watching Buffalo the past few weeks, I'm not convinced they're better than New England. Please tell me what I'm missing. No, I think it's a real good question. I mentioned it on the Film Room show last night with Scott Seidenberg. I was so excited a few weeks ago looking for this New England-Buffalo game. I'm kind of looking at it saying, I'm still excited to watch it, but I'm hoping that somebody emerges. And Buffalo's really struggling defensively with all the injuries. New England struggling offensively. Don't underestimate New England in their ability to come back with more practice. I don't think either one of these teams are threats right now. What are your thoughts on Baker Mayfield? Can his struggles be fixed with coaching? I think we're seeing it be fixed. I think the consistency is the factor with him. The biggest problem he has is that under structure, under pass rush pressure, he really struggles. And so he really reverts that. I think you're seeing a good job being done with it. He can make big-time throws. It's to make the routine throws, to be able to be poised under pressure is a key. But no, he has worked a lot better, and he has gotten a lot better. But that's still an area. Spartan Martin says Mayfield performs only good under pressure. Well, I know that's the comment, and that's the commercial. The reality is under rush pressure, he struggles. Yes, I see your questions here. Absolutely. Sports Dad, is this where he sees? Absolutely. Not seeing the other question. I'm not quite sure. What are your thoughts on Baker Mayfield? Can his struggles be fixed with coaching? Yes, absolutely. That is the question I just answered. So thank you. Good. All right. And Anthony Paris, good morning. Hey, good morning. Over from Facebook. We appreciate you. So we got some guys from Facebook. We got some guys mostly on Twitch. We appreciate joining us. Richard sent some emails. Do you think the quarterback from Indiana touched the pylon on the 2-point conversion after seeing it on replay, which led to Indiana winning against Penn State? No, looking at it on replay, it appeared to me that it hit the ground just before it popped up. And so I think it was short. The problem was, and again, I don't want to go back into the whole officiating thing. I've beaten that to death, and I'm beating that to death. We'll get into more in Landry football. But the reality was it was so close that it's not irrefutable. That's my concern. It either is or it isn't. I don't think you can be a little pregnant. I don't think you can be, have to be 60% right. You just need to know that this is the right call. What was your assessment of Lionel Vitale as a scout? Richard always asks some intriguing questions. Lionel Vitale's one of my best friends when I got into the league. Lionel is very good. He works hard. He's thorough. And I think he does a good job of doing a lot of background and doing a good job of getting a good feel for what personnel is. Probably not as comfortable at maybe doing more of the GM type things, but it's really good evaluator. I think Lionel does a very good job. The fact that the Cowboys did not show any pushback against the Washington football team after letting Andy Dalton take a dirty hit from John Boston, isn't that a bad look on Mike McCarthy? Yeah. It's a worse look on Jerry Jones and the Cowboys organization. The head football coach in Dallas doesn't have the authority. He doesn't have the respect of his players. And that's going to happen when the owner continues to be the voice of the organization. That's the problem. So that's the biggest issue. So, yeah, Mike McCarthy, Jason Garrett, Dave Campo, Jane Gailey. I mean, you want to run the list that's not Jimmy Johnson or Bill Parcells? That's the problem there. So take it a step up. What was your scouting evaluation of Dale Hatcher out of Clemson? Dale Hatcher, tell you a quick story. When Dale played at Clemson, he was a punter at Clemson. I will tell you that the loudest sounding punter I've ever seen. When you go to the practice field at Clemson, Dale used to be out there early. And before you got there, you could tell. Before you could see it going up, you say, there's Dale punting. You could hear it. Boom! It literally was like a shot. What an explosive leg. You always teach from kicking. Here's a little tip. If you're watching a game live and you want to see somebody's foot speed, literally focus a kickoff, a punt, a field goal. Stare at the football. Stare at the football. When the kicker kicks it, if you can see the ball leave, he doesn't have great foot speed. If it's a blur and it's like a bullet, where you don't see a bullet, it just, boom, it's there. If you see it and it's a blur, that's good foot speed. That's a little tip there. Henry Thomas out of LSU, was a little biased there. Coached Henry. Henry was a great defensive tackle. He was great with the Vikings. Floyd Peters, the defensive line coach there, loved him as well. I thought Henry Thomas, for about a year and a half stretch, was the best defensive tackle in all of the NFL. He was a great two-gap defensive tackle that was very good against the run and got good push against the pocket. Leroy Hoard out of Michigan. I had Leroy with me in Cleveland. Leroy was a power guy with good change of direction. He didn't have great burst. That was the only thing, but he's a very, very good back. Came out of New Orleans, went to Michigan. Some other questions. Anthony. Hey, Anthony, appreciate you joining us again. Appreciate your question. What do you think of Joe Burrow? What do you think of the Bengals can do to help him going forward? Think Joe Burrow is playing outstanding ball. They've got to help him in two ways. Better protection is the most important. Got to be able to get better offensive line play and pass protection. And two, got to get more weapons around him. I mean, I think you saw it last week. And it kind of shootout against Cleveland. He kind of brought them back, and Baker brought his team back. Those are the two things that you got to do around him offensively. And defensively, you got to be a better team. Look, if you're a team that can't play good defense, well, then there's never enough points that are enough. And that's why, the whole, his record is, 5-10. It's not a pitcher, okay? It's not the way it goes. Richard said, just got done with my online class. Now I can finally watch Landry football on Twitch. Appreciate you. How does OBJ affect the Browns offense? It affects it. We talked about it last night. Absolutely affects it. He's a great talent, great player. It's a playmaker for them. Can be a little bit of a difficult, trying to force the ball to him at times. But maybe chemistry wise, but he's a weapon. He's there for a reason. It'll help. Greg Schnoss. Hey, Greg, appreciate you joining us on Facebook there. The upcoming game Texas has against Oklahoma State. I have a feeling that OSU is going to beat Texas, and it could get ugly. What are your thoughts on that game? I just think it could get ugly. Well, let's take a look at it. Oklahoma State is playing a little bit differently than they have. Now, Texas's defense is not very good. I think Oklahoma State can run the football. If it gets ugly, it's going to get ugly at the line of scrimmage. I think this is a dangerous game for Oklahoma State because I don't think Oklahoma State is as explosive as they have been in the passing game. I think they're good, but I think Oklahoma State's more balanced. I think they play better defense than they normally do. They run the football well, and they can score. Quarterback can move this team with his legs and with his arm. Look, Texas has been Texas. They've been at times woeful on defense, at times better. I would say that this is a game, as well as the Oklahoma game, that's dangerous for Oklahoma State. These are games that I think Oklahoma State's better. They should win, but they're in the favorite role, and how they deal with it's going to be key. Let's see here. What was your evaluation of Ty Hilton? Hilton was outstanding, real explosive. I thought he was a really good playmaker after the catch, run after catch ability. Is JT Daniels still hurt, or he cannot beat out Stetson? Just seems odd. You got to remember, it's not that JT's still hurt. Is that JT Daniels has been hurt for a while, and he hasn't had a lot of reps in the offense. It is, just because you're not hurt, you don't just come back from not being hurt to you're ready now. You miss all that work, you're not going to be ready. So he's not ready football-wise because he's missed all that time. And I do think that they're playing with a comfort level with maybe ill-advised with Stetson Bennett. Hey, want to tell you about a couple of things here. We're running short on time to get to the games, but I'm going to get to some of that. And we'll get to maybe a little bit more of that on tomorrow's Landry Football podcast. But LandryFootball.com and Scout's Eye on Football, sponsored by American Betting Experts, one of the largest licensed sports and casino vendors in the U.S. We have teamed together to provide a special gaming offer to all Landry Football followers and listeners. Very simple. Go to our website, LandryFootball.com. Click on the ad located in the upper right side of the page. Pick among the gaming sites legal in your state, such as BetMGM, DraftKings, FanDuel, and PointsBet. Sign up and instantly receive an account deposit match or risk-free bet from $100 to $1,000. That easy. Just go to LandryFootball.com, click on the ad located on the upper right side of the page, and get in on the action with a special offer from American Betting Experts. Now, for Thursday night's NFL, BetMGM have the following campaign going. Bet $1 on each team's money line and receive $100 when a touchdown is scored. So the headline, is a $100 touchdown. Really important. Just go to BetMGM using the link that we gave you. Bet $1 on either team's money line on Thursday Night Football and get $100 paid into your account when a touchdown is scored. Another great offer from the great folks at Manscaped, and the support for the Landry Football Network, LandryFootball.com, and here on the Landry Football Twitch channel is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming with precision engineered tools. They obsess over their technology development to provide the best tools for your grooming experience. They've redesigned the electric trimmer called the Manscaped. Their third-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. thanks to advanced skin-safe technology. The battery is going to last up to 90 minutes, so you can take a longer shave. It's waterproof technology, allows you to groom in the shower. They've got even an LED light, which will illuminate for you. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code Landry, all caps, Landry 20. That's Landry, all caps, 20 at manscaped.com. We appreciate you, and you make sure that you support our fine folks that are supporting us. All right, running short on time again. We'll get into a little bit more tomorrow on the Landry Football Podcast. We'll kind of switch things up there. But some thoughts this week and some thoughts in the film room, kind of combining last week to this week. Want to see what Penn State comes back this week against Ohio State. Looking at the tape against Ohio State, their offense is very good, very well balanced. Need to see a little bit more, particularly out of their linebacking core. Defensively, they've got some work to do. Folks, they played one game. Can't compare them to a team that's played 4 games. Let's see what they do going forward. But Ohio State is definitely in the mix personnel-wise as one of the best teams. I want to see, again, how Penn State responds. So Ohio State, Penn State, a big feature game. I'm curious to see what Florida does coming off the unique layoff. And, I think that Florida is a really good team. I've got concerns about their defense, and now I'm concerned about their rhythm. I just don't know. I'm not questioning it. I just don't know what's going to happen. We talked a little bit about Oklahoma State and Texas. Thought Oklahoma State showed good balance, graded them against Iowa State. By the way, you can check out all the detailed film room analysis on the college and pro games, previews, reviews over at LandryFootball.com. Folks, take advantage of it. It's less than $10 a month. Get access to your own scouting department. It's less than $5 a month if you take advantage of it for a year. Michigan was impressive. Yes, I want to see more. I think they've got a chance to clobber a Michigan State team that looked awful and making tons of mistakes. Congrats to Greg Schiano and Rutgers last week. Kentucky laid an egg last week, and I'm afraid that they're going to get hammered this week by Georgia. For their sake, be afraid. Cincinnati, good defensive performance against SMU. Going to need another one again this week against Memphis. LSU Auburn, what a great history of weird, fascinating games between those two. LSU's found themselves. I did like Finley. I like his play. I like LSU a little bit better than Auburn. These games are usually close. By the way, last year's great run by LSU, it was Auburn that held them to the least amount of points all year long. So Auburn doesn't have that defense this year. I don't think they can match points. We'll see. Wisconsin, Nebraska, don't know if that game's going to be played. That's the story there. I'm very intrigued by Arkansas A&M. Arkansas has been a great story, but they've not beaten a really good team yet. I think A&M's a really good team. A&M is trying to make a statement, trying to prove that they can have a special year. They got blown out by Alabama, but they've been outstanding. Otherwise, this is a game in which they can make a statement and maybe beat an Arkansas team that's given pretty much everybody some trouble. I'm looking at a couple of things right now. Clemson, Ohio State, Bama are cut above. The fourth team, look, there is no fourth team. So when you say, what's your top 5? There is no top 5. There's 3. Okay, and then you've got, and you grade them before you stack them. It's the old draft board scenario. I do the same with coaches. I do the same with teams. And how I grade teams, you got that information out there. But those are the 3. And I think you need to watch what Georgia does. I think we need to watch what Notre Dame does. I think we need to watch what Oklahoma State does. Cincinnati, A&M, Florida, Michigan, BYU, Wisconsin. I think all those teams have some qualities. None of them are of the top 3. But in a 4-team playoff, we need to watch it. We need to see. Penn State was a team that people were touting. With a loss to Ohio State this week, pretty much eliminates them. It does eliminate them in my mind. But it's a long season. We don't know how many games people are going to play. But I'm just telling you, for me, I always let the film room dictate. Look, you can look good on film. If you lose 3 games, you're not going to be in there. I get that. But you can look and see. There's grading to a standard, which I don't have time now, but I always talk about how you grade to a standard and how you play and what is your ability. We'll go into a little later how you evaluate teams and how you go forward with that. Those are things that I think are really important to determine who's really the best, because you can't look at equal comparisons of equal teams that you've played on the schedule, but the ability to evaluate everybody, not just the top 3. You can't say, well, I evaluated 3. I didn't worry about anybody else. Well, then you're not evaluating the opponents that they're playing. And if you don't know the degree of separation between those, you're going to have a hard time evaluating adequately or accurately these teams. And then, you've got to look at certain circumstances this year that are going to be of and beyond confusing. So we're going to look at it. NFL real quick. I'm going to get into this more tomorrow, but excited about Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Can Pittsburgh get a lead early? Baltimore really balanced, maybe even more so, better at running back, but they are not as good playing from behind. We just discussed a little bit New England, Buffalo. A little bit of the shine is off the game in terms of who can be competitive in the AFC, but certainly AFC East, it's really big. The Saints, Chicago's really intriguing. San Francisco, Seattle, will the Seahawks a rebound? That's going to be key. We're going to get into that again later in the week. And then, oh, my God, could somebody please get it together in the NFC East. It's just been a disaster area. So a lot to get to. We'll get into it tomorrow on the Landry Football Podcast. We've gone a little bit over time here, but I guess when it's your channel and you don't have a show behind you until a little bit, we'll do it. Chuck Oliver will be here with you at 11 a.m. Central, 12 noon Eastern time. I'll be back with you tomorrow, 9 a.m. with the Landry Football Podcast. A reminder that we will tape SEC football and beyond, Neil McCready and I, tomorrow at 12 noon. You're not going to be able to watch it live on Twitch, but you're going to be able to catch it tomorrow on LandryFootball.com. So make sure that you do that. And we'll be back to a regular schedule Tuesday and Friday next week, 9 a.m. Appreciate all your support. Appreciate all your questions or your comments. Come back again. Enjoy. Spread the word. And check it out at LandryFootball.com. Film room analysis, our information. We got it for you. All at LandryFootball.com. We appreciate you joining us. Be safe out there. Be happy. We've got another storm coming in South Louisiana that we're hoping and bracing for later this afternoon. So it is dark and cloudy outside. So keep us in your prayers. Appreciate you joining us. Talk to you again tomorrow. God willing. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.